Welcome to this week's Best Bets episode for UFC 327, Jiri Prochazka versus Carlos Ulberg, where I'll be discussing the most confident picks, the log of the week, the underdog of the week, and some parlays that I like. Starting off with the most confident picks, we got Charles Radke, Mateusz Gamrot, and Azamat Murzakanov. Starting off with Charles Radke. He's a powerful striker, he's got strong grappling, and he has 100% takedown defense. He's coming up against Prado, who's aggressive, but he's very hittable, and he has questionable grappling, and he has low fight IQ, in my opinion. Radke is the more well-rounded fighter, and coming off of a dominant win where he showcased control and finishing ability. Prado is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, and he just makes way too many mistakes, especially on the ground. He's giving up positions, and he's getting reversed, and he's struggling to hold control. On the feet, Prado is hittable, and Radke, he has real power. And you take a look at Radke's losses, he's losing to elite level guys. Like Mike Malott is fighting in the main event next weekend, and then Carlos Prates, like top tier striking, right? And Radke has some real power. And then you take a look at what's his name, Prado's striking. He's kind of like, he's aggressive, but he doesn't have that elusive pop in his shots. He's kind of just like more of a brawler type. And if it goes to the grappling exchanges, Radke is the more disciplined and technical striker, or fighter. Prado's best path is probably to get this fight on the ground, but against Radke's defense, that's very unlikely. So Charles Radke, he's going to be better everywhere. He should win on the feet and control the grappling. Moving on to Mateusz Gamrot, fighting Esteban Ribovics. Ribovics, he is a dangerous striker. He's got real knockout power, but he has limited experience versus elite wrestlers. And we've seen him against elite wrestlers, and it didn't look good, And Mateusz Gamrot is probably the highest level wrestler he's ever faced, because Gamrot has that elite chain wrestling style, relentless pressure, high cardio, and strong scrambling ability. This is a classic striker versus grappler matchup, and Gamrot's wrestling should dictate the fight. Ribovics struggled against the only solid wrestler he ever faced, getting taken down repeatedly, and Gamrot is on a completely different level. Even Ribovics' recent win over Elvis Brenner, the wrestling threat wasn't close to what he'll face here. Gamrot has consistently imposed his game on strikers, using non-stop takedowns and pressure to shut any offense down, right? His performance against Ludwig Klein showed how he can neutralize dangerous strikers by just closing the distance and controlling against the fence, right? Ribovics, his best chance is probably a quick knockout here, but Gamrot has never been finished and he has the durability to push through any early danger, right? So over time, the constant takedown attempts and pressure should wear Ribovics down. So give me Mateusz Gamrot to use his wrestling and pace to neutralize the striking and take over the fight. Moving on to our last most confident pick, Azamat Murzakanov versus Paulo Costa. Murzakanov, he's undefeated, explosive power, and he's patient. He's got that pressure style, and he's well-rounded, whereas Paulo Costa, he's an aggressive striker, and he's kind of durable, but he's very hittable and super inconsistent, being 2-4 in his last 6. Murzakanov is on a serious upward trend right now and continues to show dangerous knockout power. Even though Costa is a tougher matchup than his last fight, Murzakanov's style, it's built to find big shots against aggressive fighters. Costa will likely try to keep this fight at range because that would be his smartest path to victory. And he could have moments early on, but he tends to get hit throughout the fight, and that's a dangerous game to play here. Murzakanov, he fights very composed, waits for openings and carries real one-shot power, and if Costa pressures forward, he's walking into that power. Even if Costa lands some leg kicks or has some early success, Murzakanov's pressure and ability to land the more damaging shots should take over the fight. You can see this fight going as like Paulo Costa landing a couple leg kicks, maybe body shots, and then Murzakanov is hitting him with a big right hand. Even if he doesn't knock him out, he's going to win that round based off of just Costa stumbling backwards or moving backwards, having the bigger moments, So give me Azamat Murzakanov to have some serious knockout power here, much more dangerous than Paulo Costa, and he's going to find the shot and pull Costa away. Moving on to the lock of the week, we got Kelvin Gastelum. Look, Luque, yeah, he's a veteran finisher. He's got dangerous grappling, but he's declining and he's so much more hesitant in his fights nowadays. Whereas Gastelum, he still has these fast hands. He's durable. He's got strong boxing, and he's proven versus these mid-level competitions. And at this stage in his career, Vicente Luque is considered mid-level competition, right? Gaslam, he tends to lose to elite level contenders, but consistently beats average level fighters, and at this stage, Luque looks closer to that category of being average. Luque's 2-5 in his last 7, and hasn't looked like the same fighter since his health issues, fighting more cautious nowadays and less willing to engage in brawls or step forward, Gaslam is coming off of a solid win where he used his speed and power and durability to overwhelm his opponent, and this matchup sets up similarly, right? Luque's best path would probably be a submission here, but it's unlikely he finds it early, and on the feet, Gaslam should have the edge in this matchup. With better durability, faster hands, and a well-rounded skill set, Gaslam should be able to pressure Luque, land the heavier shots, and control where the fight takes place. So I'm going to say that Kelvin Gastelum uses his durability. I don't see him getting dropped, and if he does, it's not the end of the world. He's going to get right back up, put up a nice boxing pace, and that should carry him to a clear win, using his boxing and his pace and that pressure forward movement, and he's built like a tank. I don't see him going down. Also one more thing about Kelvin Gastelum, if you look at his Instagram right now, he's actually showing that he's super locked in for this fight. He's saying the past 4.5 months he's been locked in, and he's getting numbers that he's never seen before in training camp or whatever. So that's like a really good sign you want to hear, right? Coming up against Vicente Luque, it's like Luque's just here just to make money, it seems like, right? But moving on to our next fight, or moving on to the underdog of the week, Josh Hockett. Josh Hockett, he's explosive. He puts up a high pace, and he's got aggressive pressure and strong wrestling. And Blades, he's a veteran with elite wrestling, and he's experienced against top level competition. But I favor Hockett's wild, high-pressure style. He just comes forward, forces his game, and looks to either knock you out or break you with his wrestling. He's coming off of a dominant performance, but this is a massive step up in competition against a seasoned contender like Curtis Blades. Blades has the experience edge and proven wrestling, and Hockett, he just brings a different kind of intensity. He's young, explosive, and relentless. He doesn't respect any rankings or how top 5 you are or whatever. He will look to impose himself in there. If Hockett can start fast, land something big, or establish his pressure early on, he can shift the fight into his favor. With his athleticism and aggression, he has the tools to make this chaotic and uncomfortable for Blades. So give me Josh Hockett to put on some early pressure and explosiveness, and that should make the difference, compromising Blades for the rest of the fight or just getting him out of there early on. So moving on to the parlay section. Starting off with the Saftey Lock plus 115, Gastelum and Radke. Both are in matchups where they're just better everywhere. Gastelum has a durability and boxing edge over a declining Luque, and Radke should outclass Prado both on the feet and in the grappling. It's low risk and high confidence in my opinion. Plus 115, it's a great safety lock. Moving on to the ultimate lock, plus 120. This is all about consistency as well. Gastelum, he beats these mid-level guys like Luque, and Gamrot's relentless wrestling should completely neutralize Rebovic's dangerous power on the feet, right? So it's two very reliable styles. You got durability with Gastelum and his boxing pressure with Gamrot's control. Ultimate lock, plus 120. Okay, so moving on at plus 145, Affordable Juice, Mirzakhanov and Tatiana Suarez. Look, Tatiana is a dominant grappler who controls the fight start to finish, and Mirzakhanov, he has legit knockout power against a hittable Costa. Tatiana is going to control her fight. Mirzakhanov is going to finish his fight. It's a strong combo with great value. Excuse me. Moving on to the 4 most confident picks, Gastelum, Gamrot, Mirzakhanov, and Radke at plus 375. These are your most confident picks, all stacked up. Gastelum with his durability in boxing, Gamrot with his wrestling dominance, Mirzakhanov with his knockout threat, and Radke just a well-rounded edge over his opponent. Each has a clear path to victory, so this is your core parlay, and it's pretty massive odds, plus 375. Moving on to the fun duo parlay, Randy and Padilla, plus 160. Randy Brown, he's the much more technical striker with range and experience, and Padilla is the more active, sharper fighter in his matchup with the better knockout power, right? Like he's gonna land the bigger shots. Is Padilla, it's not as safe. It's a fun dual parlay, but both have clear advantages. It's a nice value play. Moving on to the Underdog City Sprinkle. So this is your upside play. Hockett and Ulberg. Hockett, he brings the chaos, pressure, and athleticism. If he starts fast, he can flip the fight into his favor. Ulberg, I just think he's the cleaner striker with serious power, and he can catch Jiri in some wild exchanges. You know, it's risky, but it's high reward. You know, at plus 320, I do see it coming through. So that does conclude this week's best bets. Hope you guys found this helpful, and goodbye.